this idea of cultural exchange between cultures and countries. Of course, the conference is ULAT, which is Europe and Latin America, and the Philippines is very important, I guess, because at the beginning they were the ones that started this global trade with the galleon trade in way before. And then she wanted to talk about the idea of sustainability and how design helps with sustainability.
That the transnational nature of design work has become rather fundamental to responding to problems of the world today. That there really is no problem of the world today that we can address from the perspective of just one country or just one culture.
Yeah.
And that more and more are beginning to see that this will have to be working together at many levels.
I was also talking about how sustainability in reference to culture, to our culture, was about how this, again, ancestral knowledge from all of the different indigenous groups that we have, and how they're so connected to the land. So every time if we refer to their connections to the land and the spiritual connections that they have, us as designers, if we try to imbue our work or whatever we do with this kind of connections, the consumers, whoever buys or wants to have our work, will become more aware, and a more aware world makes a more sustainable world.
Before we create it, we always want to imbue it with some sense of why it's created, not mere fanfare, but to really take into consideration where these ideas are coming from, who passed it on to us, whether it's from other sources. And I was speaking to you about, seeing all this indigenous product that is out there, and the designers, as designers, and because I do want to go and meet with communities, but as a designer, I feel that whatever objects we create using this ancestral knowledge, like terroir, should really communicate to the consumer, the soul of why it's being created. And once that is communicated, there's more awareness. Because it's very easy to say sustainable, let's use upcycled stuff or whatever, but it really is to change consumer patterns. Is to change consumer patterns by producing objects, fashion, furniture, wine, and communicating the soul of what sustainability is. It means going back to a connection to the land and telling consumers we're not using labor or indigenous people to do, handwork that we're just going to slap on here and becomes a fashion item. It's the soul, like you say, that we would like to be able to pass on or to exchange with other people. That's really what I feel should happen. And I'm hoping that all consumers start being aware of how we have to sustain all of these things. That's how we would like to introduce it into our practice.
I was telling that joy for me, it's in the renewal of things that you find joy, because it never disappears. It's always transmitted to people, taking care of each other and also taking care of the nature or the material that they use. So they don't waste anymore. And what you use, you can put it back, and it recycles itself and come back one day. So it's kind of renewal cycle, but natural, not no process into it. It's ancestral, so everybody can do it.
The idea that the finest of the wines of the world really are from specific soils, specific climates, specific elevations. And that's the beauty of the locality. And in many ways, what Adrienne is doing has to do with bringing something from Japan, which has a particularity about Japan. Baby has been working looking at indigeneity in the Philippines. And so the cross-cultural becomes premium. And the transnational quality of design becomes exciting. The idea that a particular heritage, a particular tradition is embedded in a particular soil is very important for us, especially because we are transnational, especially because we move around the planet so much. So as we move around the planet, we begin to see how absolutely important that soil is.
It's a fantastic initiative to be part of Light and share about the link between design and also wine in general, because as we all know, wine is highly related to terroir, which is the conditions composing unique environments. So it's related to the soil and the subsoils, for example, because of course when we produce wine, we need some vines, right? And the vines, like any single plants, have roots that go into the soil and the subsoil, and this is how the vines will be able to develop some beautiful berries for us to produce wine. So the first part of this terroir is related to the soil, but we also have the climate, with the temperatures, with the rainfall, with the sun exposure. We also have the terrain and the elevation, which has also an impact on the development of the grapes. And finally, we have the tradition behind it, with the winemaker that will bring his own touch and his own craft to produce a wine. So when we relate to wine and design, we can find many different kinds of expressions, depending on the grape varieties we use and depending on the terroir. When we talk about design, the winemaker is the designer, right? Expressing what the terroir is with different grape varieties. But there is also like the bottle, which is also very important as like this part of this design. So here's the mini tea bottle, as we can see, is beautifully designed and unique in a way it fits on shelf.
Well, I've been fascinated about shibori since I first discovered it when I was living in New York. I had a Japanese weaving teacher there, and I was just doing it as a hobby. And what really drew me to the Japanese way of doing things is the sacredness of it. The respect they have for the art, the respect for the process. Every little thing is sacred, and I was so drawn to that. So I really decided to take a workshop in Japan, of course. Most of them, it was also like a personal journey of creative expression. And that's something that's really special to me, because I really think as a designer, at least on my case, it was a personal journey of finding my creative identity. And I think that I can relate that to terroir, because I would think of terroir like I would have my own like creative identity, my roots, that you cannot find in any other designer. It cannot be replicated. As an artist, you really draw from that place of inspiration. You have to go through, I don't know, ups and downs, the rain, the sun. I feel like that's so connected in your journey as an artist. And in terms of heritage and tradition, they're all passed down. So when it's really like a way of life from the olden times that have been passed down. So when I do adapt my shibori, that's why when I came here, I wanted my Philippine heritage, my roots to also come out to this art form. That's when I, explored our country for the art that I was drawn to, like embroidery from Abra, some of them have dyed, of course the weaving, because I was also drawn to the Japanese style of weaving where they celebrate mistakes, and I love that. I love that I can embrace my mistakes as an artist, and I want people to be inspired to do the same. That mistakes can be beautiful, and you create your own heritage. Sometimes you have to create your own heritage if you cannot connect to it. That's why shibori is a special journey to me.
So that's the idea of cultural exchange. This idea that whether it's a Japanese tradition or Filipino tradition or Latin American tradition, like the rebosos, which this conference actually has an exhibition on, which are this traditional woven pieces of fabric that are used by Mexicans for birth giving and taking care of children. It's all about this give and take, and about the sacredness of this give and take. Yeah.